Picking up with our reading of Dallas Pimiento, Book 3, Bronco Dilator, Part 1, An Extraordinary Pair of Eyes. I have unusually keen vision. People riding in the car with me are often amazed at how far away I can read street signs. It often amazes me that other people cannot see the individual leaves on trees half a mile away. There is more to this extraordinary vision of mine, however, than mere clarity and acuity. I see the hidden images within scratches on painted surfaces, spatters of paint or caulk on a window, or the subtleties of shade on a spackled ceiling. You do too, you say? Perhaps, but I doubt if you see the details that I see. I doubt if you can see the referential framework into which these images fit. You will just have to take my word for it, since until the global neuronic network that will render us all one great singular world mind is in place, there is no way that you can see through my eyes. If you want a hint of what it's like, you should look at some of my recent paintings. All the time I'm getting closer to what I want to express, which is in part the kinds of hideous bugaboos found on any sufficiently scratchy tabletop or randomly mottled tile of linoleum. As much as I dread the coming computerized singularity, I must say that I am intrigued at the idea that others will finally look through my eyes, register images through my unique interpretational software, and admit aloud in a global cry of delight, Lance was right! Oh, happy day among the infinite chain of nightmares to come. Confirming my suspicions that these eyes were meant to achieve greatness, of course, the forces of darkness have tried to put them out of action many times. A kid in second grade named Cedric Sanders chucked sand into them on the playground. I had the intelligence even then to wash them out and not to rub them. I was hit in the right eye with a baseball hit by an older boy. I ran into a tree at summer camp. A branch sliced open the skin below my left eye. I bore that scar many years. I see all of these events as proof that they've been trying to stop me for years. But it really wouldn't have mattered if I had went blind. I would have become a great musician. To these beautiful ends, Kim Kickmore and her husband Brad had been going back and forth to the map zone for about a year now. Kim in particular had adopted a completely new image for herself, that of a sculptor. Brad had found it easy in the map zone to become more the person he had always wanted to be, a man who could make public pronouncements of his political beliefs, but it was Kim who really blossomed in this new world. They were delighted to find that their dollars were good in Tomatoville, where they decided to rent a small house. While Brad spent his time at coffee shops around town debating with strangers, Kim worked on her assemblages back at the house. She brought junk from her native world to make her sculptures with, items that gave her pieces an alien quality that was quickly appreciated by the locals. "Where do you find these things?" one old lady asked Kim at a showing of her work. "I spend a lot of time walking around," Kim replied. Thinking that this answer didn't quite suffice, she added, "My husband and I have traveled to many places. I've collected quite a pile of junk over the years." Miss Angela O'Crea, the older woman, nodded thoughtfully. She bought a piece entitled "Let It Fall Down on Its Own." While her servants were installing it in the game room in her house, Kim was returning to her rental in a happy daze. She found Brad poring over a crudely printed book. "I sold a piece," Kim cried, "to a rich woman. Brad, I love this place." "That's only because you don't know its sordid side yet. Believe me, there is one. The government is corrupt as hell. The last mayor was murdered to keep him from spilling the beans on something called Operation Mocker. It's an old plan of some kind to maintain the map zone's economic independence." Brad did not raise his eyes from the book he held. "You really know how to bring a person down," Kim said, throwing her bag onto the tattered sofa. "Kim, I've met some people from Tomatoville's underground. This is a book of pieces of underground reporting on what's really going on here." I sold a sculpture to a rich woman," Kim repeated half-heartedly. She could consent afterwards. If she wanted to, the leader of the squad of police informed Miss O'Crea sinisterly, she could always consent to the search of her house after it was over. "Just as one may posthumously donate one's property to the church," the squad leader added, smiling, as his men hunted through Miss O'Crea's rooms for something they would not identify. I'd sooner donate it to the city government, Miss O'Crea snapped. That may amount to the same thing one day soon. The man, whose name was Fergan, curled his lips as he taunted the old lady. A member of the police squad entered the parlor holding a small green orb mounted on a pedestal. Is this it, sir? He asked. Fergan removed the straw he had been chewing from his mouth and smiled. Why, I believe it is, little brother. That is an antique reliquary, Miss O'Crea announced. You be careful with that. We will, Fergan said, taking the object from his underling. Miss Angela O'Crea, he recited formally, I am seizing this artifact in the name of the Tomatoville Registry of Religious Antiquities. If you would like to protest this seizure, you may do so at the appointed time before the mayor's board of review. However, be advised that you are under conditional arrest, a state that may be upgraded to formal detention at the discretion of the High Priest of Clamdiggers Cathedral. Fergan pulled a rumpled form out of his pocket inside his jacket. Unless you'd like to sign this consent form. That reliquary is my property. I obtained it from a licensed dealer in such antiquities. I will not consent to its seizure. Didn't think you would, Fergan almost yawned, stuffing the paper back in his jacket. Very well. He snapped his fingers to summon the rest of his squad. But remember what a vulnerable position you're in. Our ministry now has the ear of the mayor. Piss on you and your God, Miss O'Crea hissed. The uplifting, sustaining wave. The wave that allowed Dake to see over the mountains and thrill to the sight of the distant Eon giants that nestled in the crook of the horizon was composed of bundled streams of Wager particles and the most frigid air in the map zone. Dake could feel the wave slowly dying beneath his sail sandals. So he made an adjustment of a couple of degrees with the silken cord he held threaded through the fingers of his left hand. In his right he held a flask of mulava. From this he drank a tribute to the unreachable giants before beginning his precipitous descent. Ready the blanket, Gavlak instructed his son Smears as he sighted Dake nearing the ground. Gavlak, his son, and the other men of Dake's Rangers hustled to meet their leader when he landed. All were hardy fellows who showed little sign of exertion as they crowded around Dake, though they had just jogged a half a mile in the thin air. They stood on a plateau near the summit of Paniphas, a central peak in the Gonzo Mountains. Damn cold up there, Dake admitted as his blanket was thrown about his shoulders. He handed the mulava to Shaw, who took a sip and passed the rest to another man. Did you see them, Smears asked Dake. I did. Dake looked at Gavlak. They were there, in the aura, between the land and the sky, just as the old lady said. Just as the goat said, the old lady said. Let's remember that. Gavlak was stern. He was suspicious of the provenance of the information the Rangers relied on. Have it your way, Gavlak sighed. As for me, I would rather follow the words of an old lady than a goat. Goats have been known to see visions, Dake, Smears enthused. Yes, and goats are known to be in league with the mechanists, Dake reminded the lad. I wouldn't be so hard on goats, Dake, spoke up a heavily bearded man near the back of the group. Goat's milk cheese is nutritious and keeps well. You ought to know, Borton, Dake joshed. You were nursed from a goat's teat. One by one on her fingers. As I handed Lana the rings one by one, she placed them on her fingers. That's all of them, I said, turning the old shoebox over. Good. My fingers couldn't hold any more, Lana answered. She held her hands out, examining her new ornaments. I stood up from the floor of the closet, pushing on my lower back with my hands. I'm stiff, I said. You shouldn't work so hard, Lana advised me. Thank you, Your Majesty. What does some college girl know about the deleterious effects of hard work? Your queen thanks you, the young woman waved me away as I exited the room. Outside, I took possession of the balloon Lana had traded me for the rings. I told the balloon attendant that the deal had been concluded and opened the door on the side of the basket, preparatory to stepping inside. Just a moment, Lance, Lana called from the porch of the house as she walked out. I'm keeping the navigational equipment. What? My nostrils flared unflatteringly, I'm sure, as I turned about. I just said the balloon. I never mentioned anything about the instruments. Lana walked closer. I stepped into the balloon quickly, intent on taking off. Stop him, Todd, Lana ordered the attendant. The uniformed man got in with me and began disassembling the three modules that formed the balloon's navigational equipment. It is obvious that I meant the balloon as is when I agreed to this deal. How am I supposed to know where I'm going? I demanded. That's not my concern. Lana wasn't looking at me at all. She was looking at a large ruby on her left thumb. I sized this Todd up. Could I take him in a fight? I had been diligently lifting weights since the new year. I resorted to bluster. "I'll get you," I yelled at Lana. As the attendant stepped out of the basket with the equipment in his arms, I cast off the moorings and began to rise. "Have a good trip, wherever." Lana smiled up at me, the smug little ecologist. Into pretty excesses of civility. I had a paper sack of muscadines with me. These provided me with food on the journey, while the sack provided me with a hat to wear when the trip turned cold, which it did the following day. I passed over an immense container of blue cheese dip, one that I hoped marked the northern border of the map zone. Without proper instrumentation, it was hard to tell. I had never been to the map zone before. My other problem was that once I landed, it was unlikely I would be able to get the balloon in the air again. In order to come down, I would have to release the precious Maxon gas from the bag. It was the sight of the famed chicken reactors of Oakerton that convinced me to land the balloon. The gas, loosed from the valve at the top of the bag, made a sound like the native antelope that gathered at the sound and followed the course of the sinking balloon in an ever-increasing herd, finally coming to earth in a muddy field within sight of one of the reactors. I dispelled the antelope by filling my hat sack with air and popping it. As I walked over the deflated balloon across the field, I was met by a couple of farmers. "Hello there," I saluted them. "Is this Oakerton?" "Just outside of it," replied one of the men. "You got some way of getting that thing off my field?" "What if I gave it to you?" I asked. "Got no use for a flying machine." I nodded solemnly. "Okay, then," I said. "Could I pay you or someone you know to drive me and my balloon to downtown Oakerton? How much are you willing to pay?" "Fair price. $100 sound good?" The man rubbed his bristly chin and looked at his companion. "Well, I don't know. How about $150? I upped the offer. "All right, sure. Where's the money?" "Right here." I produced a wad of bills, each one bearing my image. Seeing their error, the two bumpkins bowed low. Even of old, Brisbig the 12th died with the name of Oakerton on his lips, I told the enthusiastic crowd that gathered to see my triumphant entry into the city. He regretted that he could never find the time to pay a visit to the map zone, and to your city in particular. As your new sovereign, I have made it among my very first official acts to fulfill what my predecessor wished. The two farmers who had driven me into town were pressed for the whole story of my arrival. As they spoke haltingly but proudly to a group of reporters, one reporter detached himself from the rest and went to a payphone. I need to speak to Trent Fricker," he told the operator with the Tomatoville comment. While he waited for Fricker, he glanced back at the farmers and shook his head. "Fricker here. Trent Fricker, this is Earl Hudson from the Oakerton Questioner. Thought you'd want to know that the king is here." "King Brisbig the 12th? No, apparently Brisbig is dead. We've got a new king, name of Lance. Ever heard of anybody by that name?" "There was somebody connected with the Loath Procurement Ministry named Lance Ash." Fricker began making notes on the pad. "I think it's the same guy. Listen, this King Lance is coming to Tomatoville next. I'm going to follow him. I'd like to get together when I get there." Sure, Earl. But the next place I visited was not Tomatoville, but Corn City. Even of old had the kings of far and near made their tours of the map zone in this order, saving Tomatoville for last. Besides, I wanted it this way. I wanted to give the forces of darkness time to gather their strength. In the meantime, I enjoyed the hospitality of my subjects, asking of everyone I met where I might obtain a large quantity of Maxon gas. "You might try the Maxon gas depository just outside of the eastern entrance to Tomatoville," one public official told me.